Good morning, gamers and non gamers. So, we have a bunch of new reveals. I'm going to probably post a few different videos talking about them. The first one I want to talk about is the Centurion archetype out of what set is this? DBVS. I can't remember what that is. But either way, I also kind of want to start this off with a bit of sort of housekeeping. So, firstly, new haircut, PogChamp. Second of all, there's a lot going on right now over on my TikTok. I'll try and link that in the description. If you look at the most recent two videos, I made a video talking about Paulie and the whole situation with him following Trump and Jordan Peterson. I said some things in that video. Somebody commented on my video asking for clarification on one of those things. I made a video clarifying it, talking about some specific things that Republicans in general have been doing that are harmful to people. And I got something like 7 comments from this guy on my video. Just, he's absolutely losing his mind. Clearly, he didn't actually want to hear what I had to say or any of my points. He's just here to sort of argue with a liberal, right? So I am going to be responding to him again. I have been doing a ton, and I mean a ton of research on the things that Trump did while he was president and how he caused harm to a lot of people through his policies, through the people he appointed, all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in seeing that, I plan on making a condensed version for TikTok that can hopefully fit in the time frame I'm given. And then I think if that video gets some traction, I may sort of create a longer form version for here on YouTube with a lot more information, very comprehensive. But aside from that, let's sort of pivot back. So, YG Organization, they posted the translations for the new Centurion cards. I have not read these yet, so I'm just going to sort of read through them, starting with Centurion Primera. I think moving forward, I'm just going to skip over the Centurion part. So, one thing I did know is that Primera is a spellcaster whose attack is equal to their defense, which there are some cards for the Albaz lore, which wants spellcasters whose attack is equal to their defense, or lets you search them or summon them or whatever. So there could be some synergies there. I was seeing people sort of talking about that. So it's a level 4, which is sort of like, I guess, the standard in terms of basic monsters. You can only use the first and third effect once per turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Centurion card. Okay, so she's the Stratos. Is it a she? I think it's a she. Um, it's a Stratos, but you cannot special summon herself for the rest of the turn. And then the second is like, I guess, it's a protection. So it says level 5 or higher Centurions cannot be destroyed by card effects while this card is treated as a continuous trap. During your main phase, while this card is treated as a continuous trap, you can special summon it. Okay, interesting. So, another thing I saw is there's Centurion Trudia, which is Pyro, which is searchable from the new Pyro Searcher that's coming out in one of the sets before this one, but one that hasn't come out in the TCG yet. So you can only use the first and second effect once per turn. During your main phase, you can place this card you control and one Centurion monster from your hand or deck, except itself, face up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. But you cannot special summon Trudia for the rest of this turn. And then it says during the main phase, while this is treated as a trap, you can special summon it. Then you can increase its level by 4. Okay, so it becomes an 8. Is that important? So then there's Centurion Emmett the Sixth. I just completely forewent not saying Centurion. During your opponent's turn, if this card is in your hand or grave, you can target a Centurion monster you control except itself. Place it face up in your spell and trap zone, and if you do, special summon this card. So it either summons itself from hand or reborns itself by basically like putting a monster in this spell and trap, and then if it's a continuous trap, you can summon it. That's interesting. Okay. Hold on. No, she's not a tuner. Okay, so Primera is a tuner. I was looking ahead and there's a synchro. I was wondering if like does this treat something as a tuner like Ib did with World Legacy Monsters, or was it World Chalice Monsters? I don't remember. Ib's banned, so it doesn't matter. So its materials are generic. It's a level 12. It's Legadia. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to call it Legatia because it's funny to me. So you can only use the first and third effect once per turn. If this card is special summoned, you can draw a card. Then you can destroy the one face-up monster your opponent controls with the highest attack. Okay, so the second part is optional. So you can draw a card without destroying a monster. That's good. So you basically like summon it, draw a card, and then you get to Smashing Ground. That's not bad. Your monsters with 2,000 or less attack cannot be destroyed by battle. Interesting. So it says during each end phase, you can place a non-synchro Centurion monster from your hand or grave face up into your spell and trap zone as a continuous trap. Okay, so the idea is you just sort of continuously place them as continuous traps for follow-up. Let's see what the spells and traps do. So they have a field spell. You can only use the second and third effect once per turn. Cannot be destroyed by your opponent's effects while you control a Centurion monster card. During your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, you can send a card from your hand to the grave, place a Centurion monster from your deck face up as a continuous trap. If a monster is special summoned, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon using materials you control, including... Oh, okay, so I'm beginning to see why they're treated as continuous traps and why that's important. So I'm going to finish reading. Things are starting to make sense. So this lets you quick synchro if a monster is special summoned. And that's not specific to a Centurion monster being summoned, but you have to use at least one Centurion monster as the materials for that monster. Which is probably why the one increases its level by 4, because you want to summon it and then you want to place it in the back row, and then you place the... So you normal summon Trudia, and then you use Trudia's effect to set itself and Primera in the back row, and then you use Primera's effect to summon itself, and then you use its effect on summon to search a Centurion card, which I'd imagine is the field spell. And then the field spell lets you quick synchro to go into the synchro, and then that destruction effect can become a quick effect. So you draw and then you pop. The problem, I think it would honestly be better if it didn't draw, because it's running into the same problem that the Plunder Patrol have, in that this effect can be ashed, which is not great. And then during the end phase, it replaces one of the Centurions. You can basically do the entire combo over again the next turn by placing the Trudia back in the back row. Where does Emmett 6 fit into this? He's a level 8 Earth Machine, so that's interesting. I feel like... So it says, during your opponent's turn, if this is in your hand or grave, quick effect. Okay, so that effect is a quick effect. Interesting. So you can target a Centurion you control except itself, place it face up in your spell and trap as a continuous trap, and then special itself. So this card, the synchro doesn't do anything if you place it as a continuous trap. So doing it to the synchro is probably not worth your time. So I guess in addition to being able to set off of the Legatia to do it all again, if you go into a different level 12 synchro on your opponent's turn, you can choose to go into the Emmet, which the Emmet basically does the same thing. Like if it's in your hand or grave, you can target a monster you control, place it, and then set this into the spell and trap, and then you can summon it from the spell and trap zone. Or no, it places the card you targeted in the spell and trap and then summons itself. But it doesn't offer a lot of follow-up is the problem. If you want follow-up, you have to go through Primera and Trudia on the next turn. Okay, interesting. All right, so the field spell kind of ties it all together. Let's see what the other spells and traps do. So there's Faith of Centurion, which you can use the first and second effect once per turn. The first effect, it's a quick play. It says, place a Centurion monster from your hand or grave face up in your spell and trap zone. That's really bad. Wow, that is god awful. And then it says, if a Centurion Synchro is special summoned to your field while it's in your grave, you can banish it and then target a Centurion monster and set it. This card sucks butt. Oh my gosh, that's so bad. I'm not even gonna justify talking about that. That card's so bad. Like if it's set from deck, like if it was like a E-Telly or a quick launch, but instead of summoning it, it put it in the back row, that would be one thing. But oh my gosh. All right, so Centurion Phalanx. This is a trap. This says, so it's a normal trap. This says you can only use one of the first and second effects per turn and only once that turn. So you have to pick one or the other. I assume the first one's an activation effect and the second one's a grave effect. That's true. That's correct. You can target a face-up monster on the field, banish it, and if you do, special summon it to its owner's field during the standby phase of the next turn. Okay, so it's removal. That's interesting. And then the second effect, you can banish this card from the grave and target a Centurion Synchro in your grave, special it, and if you do, it loses 1500 attack. Does that matter? How much attack does it have? 35, so it goes down to 2. I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. So Phalanx is sort of, it's like a Farfa, but the monster doesn't come back until the standby of the next turn. It doesn't come back in the end phase, which I guess is interesting, and it like summons it back. Which if you're going to try and like remove like your opponent's normal summon, that kind of gives them the opportunity to like activate its effect again on the next turn, which is not ideal. But if it's like an ignition effect and you can remove it before they activate the ignition effect, then that's really good. All right, so they also have a counter trap. So this says, so it's an Omni Negate. Oh, okay, hold on. So it says when a spell trap card or monster effect is activated, so it can only respond to spell trap activations. It can't respond to spell trap effects. So that's interesting. This says, send a face-up monster from your spell and trap zone to the grave. Negate the activation if you do destroy that card. This card is not necessarily specific to Centurion. This could hypothetically be used in something like Crystal Beast, or Hero puts Vision Heroes in the back row, but they pretty much use their effects immediately. So that doesn't seem super relevant. And then there's some reprints. There's Magic Planter, which that makes sense as a reprint. And then there's Gravity Collapse, also makes sense as a reprint. So let's see. All in all, this actually seems really cool. I think that this deck offers an interesting sort of engine. I think that the fact is that it basically lets you set up an Omni Negate. The best starter, the Trudia, is searchable through the new Pyro Searcher, which means you can have 6 copies of it, which is unbelievable. The Primera has some synergy with some Albaz stuff. I don't think you would want to max out or even play too many copies of the Primera. You mostly just want to like set it to your back row off of the Trudia. If you're playing a dedicated Centurion deck, I can see you playing like the whole shebang. But I think what might end up happening is it might see play as an engine to go into a level 12. I saw somewhere that there were some people that had basically broken it where you could summon multiple level 12s. But I think as it stands, like, I mean, Hot Red Dragon, what is it? Hot Red Dragon, King Calamity. Yeah, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity is like azathot on your opponent's turn, and it's a level 12. Yeah, when this card is synchro summoned, you can activate this effect. For the rest of the turn, your opponent cannot activate cards. Also, cards your opponent controls cannot activate their effects. This lets you King Calamity your opponent. That's really good. That's a win condition in and of itself. I wouldn't even go into the Legatia. I would just play 6 copies of Trudia and then a copy of Primera, maybe 2 if you fear God, and then the field spell. And you can search the field spell off of Primera when you summon it, and then it basically sets the whole thing back up again because you can Trudia on your opponent's turn since it's a trap. I guess we'll get to this. Because they're continuous traps in the back row, all of their effects are quick effects if they're effects that can activate while they're traps. Like the effect to summon itself from the back row is a quick effect. It doesn't say that on the card, but because it's being treated as a continuous trap, face-up traps, their effects are spell speed 2, meaning you can activate them on your opponent's turn. Meaning you can go Trudia, set itself in Primera, summon itself, search the field spell, activate the field spell. Once Trudia summons itself on your opponent's turn, synchro into King Calamity, your opponent can't activate effects. And all of that is just off of one card. And I guess technically 2 garnets, hypothetically drawing them isn't the worst thing in the world because Trudia can set from hand or deck. So I guess they're more bricks than garnets. And if you draw the field spell, then you just don't activate Primera's effect. If you want to play more stuff, like you want to play the counter trap as like an alternative search where you can search it and then have like a negation in addition to that, that's interesting to consider. The problem is that if you're just playing the Centurion engine, you're not going to have anything in the back row once you sort of go through the motions of doing the combo, because then you're going to summon the Trudia, sync them off, and they're both going to go to the graveyard, and you don't have something in the back row to be sent. But otherwise, this looks really good. I think that this might end up being something that sees play pretty much immediately on release. I don't think it's going to be a standalone deck. I think people are going to try and play it sort of as like an engine, so we'll have to see how that goes. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys got some good insights. If you liked this, hit that subscribe. If you're interested in seeing the stuff I was talking about on TikTok, hit my TikTok in the description, and see you guys in the next one.